Man, UFC 244 was a badass event. The problem is the main event. It was Nate Diaz getting boxed up and kind of losing the first 3 rounds, but at the end of the third round, Nate Diaz was coming on strong. Nate Diaz was landing some punches. He actually had him stumble at one point because Jorge kind of did like a little stumble because he got cracked with the 1-2 punch. And Nate Diaz even says, my intentions were to go fourth and fifth rounds because that's when I was going to turn up the juice and start pouring it on Jorge because nobody can pressure and nobody could hold the pressure that I give. Basically, that's what he was saying because Nate Diaz has a lot of pressure and he pressures the hell out of his opponents. But Jorge was winning those couple 3 rounds, right? Then you had some bullshit doctor come in there and say, Nate, you can't compete anymore. The damage over your eye, it's too bad. But you should let the fans know why you're stopping the fight. All he said was, well, doctor stoppage. They should let the fans know why. You know, even Dan Berbliotti, the referee, even the referee was like, I don't really want to call the fight because he went like that and it looked like he was like, this sucks. It wasn't like something that you knew. You looked at the fighter and you're like, of course you couldn't compete. Of course you were beat down. Of course it was so violent that you couldn't compete. Luke Thomas. You had Luke Thomas, Joe Rogan, John Anik, Dominic Cruz. They've probably seen way more fights than this stupid referee. And they say, if it would have been in Vegas, even Dan Hardy said this, if it was in Las Vegas, the fight would have continued. The fight would have never been stopped because what happened? Nate Diaz versus Anthony Pettis, he was still bloody the same way, and he was going like this in that fight, and the fight was not ended by a doctor stoppage. The doctors in New York, the actual athletic commission, because they're so new, they don't really know what the hell is going on. Yes, we want to know what the fighter safety is. Yes, I respect that. If the fighter can't compete, the fighter can't defend himself, then the fight should be stopped, right? But in this fight, Nate Diaz was defending himself. He was coming on strong. And like Joe Rogan said, you got to realize who the fighters are. Nate Diaz has a heart of a lion. Nate Diaz is tough as nails. Nate Diaz always comes forward, always gets cut, always gets bloody. But this commission stopped the fight prematurely in my book. I believe the fight should have kept going. The fight could have lasted another 1 round. But Nate Diaz even said after the fight, motherfucker, I was planning on going 5 rounds. He thought, we're going to run it back. He thought, I want to fuck this dude up. I really want to beat him up. And Jorge was like, hey guys, he was telling the crowd basically, don't boo me. I did what I was supposed to do. I'm not the doctor. And he goes, it's basically bullcrap that the fight was stopped. He goes, that doctor is now going to be looked at as a scumbag for stopping the fight. Out of any martial arts fan, any combat fan out there, who thought that fight should have been stopped? Of course the crowd was chanting bullshit because that's exactly what the call was, a bullshit call. The fight should have kept going for the last 10 minutes. It should have kept going for that last 10 minutes. The first 15 minutes, Nate Diaz was going like this since the beginning of the fight. So why did the doctor stop it? If he wasn't going to stop it in the first round or the second round, why did he wait until the fourth round to stop it? The cut was what it was. It wasn't so bad that it was like prohibiting him from fighting. He wasn't so bloody that he couldn't see out of his eye, that he couldn't fight. Okay? Nate Diaz is a true fighter. He's a true fighter's fighter. He's always going to come forward, always going to throw down. But Jorge was doing everything. That's the only problem with Diaz. He only relies on heavy volume, coming forward, and toughness, and throwing heavy punches. But the problem with Diaz is they never throw heavy punches to knock your ass out. They never throw 100%. Their leg kicks are basically like just slapping you, and they're not really damaging. And Jorge, on the other hand, he throws with violence. He throws with heavy violence, and he throws with a lot of conviction behind his strikes. So maybe Jorge versus like a Conor would be a badass fight, because Conor does the same thing. But I don't think Conor could last with Jorge because of his cardio issues. And Diaz, he was like, hey, I was trying to take it to the 4th and 5th round, and we were going to see actually what happened. So when the UFC does bring it back, because that's a fight that we need to see who would win and who would not win, we need to see a rematch. So this should be the next fight for both these guys. It should be somewhere in, let's say, March time frame. They should give them time to heal and then come back. And they should really bring this fight back, because the fans got ripped off, the UFC got ripped off, and Nate and Jorge got ripped off, because you don't know who actually was going to win that fight. You could say, well, Jorge was dominating the fight. Well, how do you know if the last 10 minutes Nate wouldn't have dropped him and got him in a Kimura or choked him out with a triangle choke? You never know. All you know is what happened in the first 3 rounds. So as always, this has been my take on what happened at UFC 244. I just think it was a bad decision by the commission to stop the fight. The referee didn't want to stop it. All the fans in the building didn't want to be stopped. All the announcers, Joe Rogan, Dominic Cruz, Luke Thomas, Dana White, they're all like, what is this stoppage? If it was anywhere else in the country, this fight would have continued, because it wasn't prohibiting him from competing. He wasn't so jacked up that he was like, I can't see out of my eye. He was able to see what was going on. But that guy, whoever he was, that doctor was like, no, I don't think it's good. You need to stop. The fight's over. That's dumb shit. That's real dumb. But as always, I'm your boy Trevor, back with another one. I want to see the fight go all 25 minutes. I'll see you guys next time.